A quick disclaimer about this video is to not take this video seriously literally at all. Do not take the words I say in this video as real or factual or anything like that. Even if you hear something that I say that's like, hey, that actually sounds like a really good idea. That's not what this video is. Just letting you know that before we jump into it. So, starting off with TSM. Because even Jensen over on Team Liquid has mentioned this in a Travis interview, that TSM in Season 9, they kind of played this passive play style, and it looks like in their first 2 weeks of LCS, they've continued that, which is kind of maybe left them in a bit of a rocky start. Now, if you're going to play passively, there is one AD carry that you should definitely be playing, and would definitely probably win them more games. That champion is, of course, Jinx. Jinx the loose cannon. Why? Her passive is literally A, get excited, because I don't think anyone was excited for that TSM Immortals game after it was done, but also it's a passive that rewards you for doing stuff successfully. So if it's not being used, it means, hey, step up your game and actually do something that makes something work. Maybe on a little bit of a serious analytical note, if you remember back in Season 5, if you were watching back then or even knew what League was, the pro scene specifically, TSM actually did used to run some comps with Jinx back when they had Wild Turtle, and did actually have some success with it. Now granted, that was obviously a different time and space, quite literally. We're in 2020, that was 2015. Not only has the meta changed, but even if it hasn't, the champion has changed. Also, other champions around them have changed and stuff like that. So I'm not saying it would be a 1-1 ratio of suddenly they're just winning. I am saying though, if you're going to play that passive playstyle, one of the things about playing passively is also scaling. Jinx is one of the best scaling AD carries in the game. Now granted, it's interesting because if you talk to August Browning, the kit designer for Jinx, he would make the argument Jinx is actually more of a mid-game snowballing champion if you're playing her correctly, meaning you're getting your leads and then you're pushing those advantages and you're knocking towers and objectives down and you're doing things like that. You should actually be able to snowball off of Jinx's scaling and passive and close out the mid-game. Something else then that would help TSM, you would think, right? Because then TSM, guess what? If you are playing passively and you are playing these 40-minute games but everybody else isn't, Jinx, if you're playing her correctly, is actually helping you win the game under 40 minutes, like 39 minutes and 59 seconds, but also possibly like 25 to 30 minute mark if you can actually push her advantage. It's one of the things that, on a serious note, I do like watching players like Deft play Jinx for. It's because, when, again, we've mentioned this in past videos, when you think of Jinx, you think of this passive, like, backline, long-range champion, but Deft actually tries to play Jinx kind of aggressively, and when it works, it's somewhat beautiful. And that's kind of a thing with a lot of champions too. There's probably an idea of how they should be played, an idea if you're auto-filled or whatever the heck and you're picking up a champion because you heard they were strong, you're going to try playing them. But then there's those people that have played a champion a lot, put hours into them, and play them a different way that's a lot more exciting, like Deft pushing the limits of the Get Excited passive. But also, dragons. Just turns out they're just as important in pro play as they are in solo queue. Dragon fights, especially dragon fights early, they did a buff to Jinx in 10.2. Now granted, it was a quality of life change. I don't know how many of you are watching that have Twitter, but if you do, there was a tweet that went out where they went over about 20 champions who hadn't gotten specifically a quality of life change in a while, and Jinx was on that list. And they mean quality of life, like as in not really a power buff, a nerf, anything like that. So even though Jinx has gotten some changes since like Season 9, she hadn't gotten a quality of life change actually in quite some time. So this quote-unquote buff is a quality of life change for those people that are like, this wasn't really a buff, this was nothing. Well, that's probably the reason why. It wasn't supposed to put her as a top tier AD carry. However, for TSM, she might be a top tier AD carry, because now you can also take those fights around Dragon with a carry that will scale or possibly snowball and possibly get excited. Or if you can pull off the Wild Turtle magic, steal it with the Super Mega Death Rocket while you're up in top lane, and then use the passive to trade with the extra attack speed. I don't know, I'm not in comms, I don't know what's going on with TSM specifically, and all of that jazz. And obviously, if you couldn't tell by now, this video, again, should not be taken seriously. If for some reason TSM is watching this video, I mean, I'd love it if you guys would play Jinx. I actually always enjoy watching pro players play Jinx because I just think it's a different kind of game. Obviously, it's a different kind of game in pro play, but also when people play Jinx. Even the same two teams in the same region don't always seem to play Jinx the same when she is meta. Some will go for that scaling, give me like a Janna, Ardent Sensor kind of support. Other teams will go for the engage and try and just engage on people and hopefully get Jinx assists so she can have passive resets and movement speed to keep up with the engage. Then there's that third option that game FlyQuest had back in 2017, where everybody on their team was an engaged champion and there was no appeal for Jinx at all whatsoever. So Jinx just kind of had to die I believe, in the back. I want to say that was FlyQuest, so I want to say that was Wild Turtle, because that's probably the only person playing Jinx back in Season 7. So there is that. But what I am saying is, so on a side note, it is fun watching that, but I'm also somewhat addressing the passive playstyle as also pro play in itself, and then balance as a larger conversation to have on this channel, because we hear it all the time, you know, champion being nerfed or whatever because of pro play, how pro play is a different kind of beast, and yet Riot tries to kind of make the game similar for solo queue as it is for pro play. I don't know, and I have my own opinions on if that could ever actually truly be achieved. If for nothing else, ping is different, so I don't know if that really can be achieved, unless maybe they have multiple servers in North America. And I don't mean multiple servers like divide the player base even more when it's one of the smaller regions. Actually, I just mean maybe have more routing, I guess, systems or something in place to make it. Doublelift kind of mentioned this with the Players Association, how they were saying like if all 10 players in the game were from LA, maybe have some sort of routing server or something that they can all play on LA ping, so that way they're not all going through Chicago, and some of them have like ridiculous ping, some of them don't, even though they're all in like the same city, that kind of a thing. But in general, with balance changes and whatnot, champions do tend to get adjusted and sometimes left in the gutter because of their performance in pro play, even if they're pretty bad in solo queue. Ezreal was probably one of the better examples of this in recent memory for most people, because he was one of the 380 carries that were dominant at Worlds. And I used air quotes, you can't see them. I don't consider him dominant, but I consider him an option that people like to pick. It was really the Kai'Sa and Xayah show, let's be real. And even though they tried to nerf him right before Worlds, those weren't really nerfs, and that's why they stayed dominant. Now they got nerfed after Season 9 when it doesn't matter anymore and no one really cares. But still, Ezreal was actually popular in pro play. He was being used, people were winning with him, they were losing with him, but in solo queue his win rate was down in the 40% and getting lower, and yet he would still get nerfed. And if you were an Ezreal player, that's got to be frustrating, like an actual Ezreal player. Like I know we don't see them very often. Usually it's autofield mid laners. Ezreal players are kind of like a myth. And by myth, I mean a legend, because we don't actually know if they exist for sure. They probably do though, and as such, addressing them, yes, that actually sucks, and I would agree, right? Azir, Kalista, we have those different instances in time. You could even make the argument Rek'Sai's on that list, even though she's not a pro play problem, but she's also like a no one problem anymore. Does anyone play Rek'Sai at all? Does Rek'Sai need help? Should someone call Rek'Sai up and make sure she's okay being a queen of the Xerxai? Does Xerxai like leave her because her tunnels aren't even the way they used to work, and the jet ski skin now doesn't work quite the same? It's kind of sad, actually. The jet ski was actually really awesome. But getting back to pro play, TSM and whatnot, right? What does that mean though? Like, what exactly does it mean in the future about if your champions played a lot, they're just gonna get nerfed a lot, right? It sucks, etc., etc. What it does mean is the subreddits, actually. I want to try and call out the subreddits as best I can, because when it comes to the boards, and it comes to the subreddits, writers will try to talk to people, they'll try to address people, but as we all know, sometimes those places can be a little bit toxic, and getting feedback from them can kind of be like a little bit of an echo chamber, and not even like a good echo chamber, like just an echo chamber of just, hey, we hear what you're saying, writer, we just don't care, which defeats the purpose of them trying to go get feedback from those places. So if you are someone that uses those subreddits, I would say try and construct your feedback in the best way possible. Usually when I talk to writers about certain things, the more receptive they are is based off of how more I try to be constructive, even if I have some emotion. As best you can, don't be angry though. But even if you're a little bit passionate about what you're talking about, make it constructive. Make it about, you know, why you think something is an issue. Make it about why you think your solution would fix it. Make it about why you think the changes that Riot's trying to do would or would not fix it as well. Try and find that bridge. Not enough people try and find that bridge and then wonder why Riot doesn't listen to them. If you want them to listen to them on your champion, that's not like a 100% way guarantee, but it is a way that it's going to make them listen a bit more. If your feedback, it can be critical, but just don't be rude about it. That's like the basics of it. And I shouldn't have to say that. Most of us are grown here, if nothing else, but I still have to say it because writers still deal with that all the time. Some writers have their DMs open specifically so they can have players give them feedback. And sometimes it's just death threats and other stupid stuff that I'm not going to go into, right? So going forwards, can pro play and solo queue ever be the same kind of game? Ultimately, I'm not entirely sure. Some people say voice comms would do it. I'm not a huge fan of voice comms in previous games I've played, but if you want voice comms in League, you know, do you. But at the same time, I actually think the games are two different kinds of games. So going back to TSM and wrapping this up with them, even though I'm joking about playing Jinx and stuff, I will say because the game is different, try try and give players a little bit of a break especially if you're a fan, like an actual fan of these teams, right? Like, you can be mad at them, that's fine. You can be upset that, like, you know, you're not winning or something like that, that's fine. But don't attack the people themselves. Don't attack them as characters. They probably feel bad enough that they're doing however they're doing as well too. When you're not at the top, it probably always feels bad regardless. Even if you're almost at the top, you're not still there yet. So they probably feel just as bad as you do. Just try and remember that and keep that into mind. Also, TSM, if you want to play Jinx, go for it, because you're probably not going to get contested for playing Jinx. So if in scrims and stuff you come up with a Jinx strategy, like you somehow revive the ggGetJinxed, no one's going to be fighting you for that, and you could probably maybe sneak some wins off of there. So I will say that, but that's going to be all for this video. It's a bit all over the place, sorry about that. Discussion video though, so in the comments, let's discuss all the topics we talked about in this video. But that's all from this video from me. So thank you so much for watching this video. Call to action. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Hit that bell notification, the actual subscribe button. But I don't know which video will be next, because life can have a lot of kinks. So till this time, take care. GG, get jinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.